They called her the poor girl. Every hallway, every classroom, every corner of the school echoed with whispers about her worn-out backpack, her faded clothes, her silence. Her classmates believed she was invisible, someone unworthy of their respect, someone who would never matter. But the truth? The truth was darker, heavier, and far more powerful than their cruel laughter. Because behind the quiet eyes of that girl lived a secret none of them could imagine. One moment of humiliation would soon be turned upside down. A moment so shocking, so unforgettable, that every student who mocked her would forever remember the day a sleek luxury car stopped in front of the school and shattered the illusion they thought was real. This is not just a story about cruelty. It is about appearances, betrayal, envy, and the silent revenge of a girl who never needed to raise her voice to prove who she truly was. They noticed everything about her except her name, the frayed zipper on her backpack, the scuffed sneakers that never changed, the way she slipped into the last row and sat very still, as if stillness could make her vanish. In a school where the latest phone decided who got a seat at the cool table, Livia learned to move like water, quiet, unbothered, impossible to hold. Camilla noticed her most, though not with kindness. Camilla wore trend like armor and attention like a crown. A hair toss could turn silence into a spotlight. At her side drifted Henry, always ready with a joke that cost someone else their pride. Marina, 2 rows ahead, watched everything with a flinch she tried to hide. She had learned that compassion has a price in crowded hallways. Roll call turned into a ritual of whispers. Look at that backpack. Vintage. No, just old. A few laughs, then the soft scratch of pens. Livia wrote anyway. Her handwriting was neat, careful, like a promise she was keeping with herself. She didn't look up. The weight of their eyes couldn't touch the discipline she carried in her chest. Breathe. Focus, collect what matters, let the rest fall away. At break, the cafeteria was a stage. Camilla unboxed a new designer wallet like it was an award. Had to upgrade, she said loudly. Henry snorted. Imagine Livia with that. She'd have to sell her house for the receipt. Laughter arrived on cue. Marina stared at her tray, cheeks burning for a pain that wasn't hers. Livia took her juice to the edge of the courtyard, where the sunlight cut a clean stripe across the bench. She ate slowly, watching the wind tug at the school flag. Her phone buzzed once. A message lit the screen. Proud of you. Keep going. Dad, she locked it again. Not every truth belongs on a stage built by strangers. Project groups formed after lunch. Desks scraped. Names flew. No one said hers. Not with Livia, someone muttered. She probably doesn't even have a laptop. The teacher missed it or pretended to. Livia stood, gathered her notebook, and chose an empty table by the window. If no one wanted her, she would want herself. Marina hesitated, the cruelty in the room pressing a hand to her shoulder. Camilla's look, sharp, possessive, pinned her where she sat. Marina swallowed and stayed. The choice landed heavy, even though it looked like nothing at all. Livia's pencil moved, headings, bullet points, sources from memory. She organized the topic with quiet precision, building something solid beneath the noise. When the teacher circled past and glanced down, a flicker of surprise softened her brow. Good, Livia, she said, and for a second the air tasted different. The final bell loosened the day. Hallways flooded. Camilla brushed Livia's shoulder hard enough to jolt her. Careful, she sang. Wouldn't want your relic of a bag to tear. Henry laughed too loudly. It sounded more like fear than humor. Livia steadied herself, zipped the old backpack, and walked on. There was nothing bright about what she wore, but brightness had never asked her permission. It lived in the way she carried herself, chin level, eyes clear, steps measured. It lived in her refusal to perform a collapse for people who came only to applaud it. Night slipped across the sky as she made her way home, streetlights blinking on one by one like patient witnesses. She replayed the day in neat small pieces and put them away. Tomorrow the whispers would start again. Tomorrow the jokes would try to stick. Tomorrow she would be water again. And still somewhere underneath the practiced calm, a current gathered strength. Because some stories look quiet until they reach the drop, until gravity takes hold and the world finally hears the sound of everything that was building in silence. Morning came with the same rhythm as always. The clang of lockers, the swell of voices, the quick steps of students eager to be noticed. But for Livia it was another gauntlet. She slipped into school with her head slightly lowered. Not out of shame, but out of strategy. The less they had to read from her face, the less fuel for their jokes. Camilla, however, lived for fuel. She strutted into the corridor, flaunting a brand new bag with the logo turned outward like a badge of power. She raised her voice just enough. Had to buy a new one. The old model was practically ancient. Her audience laughed on cue. Then, with a sly glance at Livia, she added, "Some people here wouldn't even know what it feels like to own something new." The dart hit its mark. Henry leaned in, smirking. "Yeah, imagine her with one of these. She'd need to mortgage her whole life just for the strap." He snapped a photo of Camilla posing and made sure Livia was in the blurry background, shrinking at her locker. The laughter spread, weaving into the walls until it seemed the building itself joined in. Marina, from across the hall, felt the weight of it settle on her chest. She bit her lip, wanting to intervene. But Camilla's watchful eyes were quick to punish any sign of dissent. Marina's silence became another brick in the invisible wall around Livia. Class was no better. The teacher announced group work, and the scramble began. Desks screeched across the floor. Names were called, plans made. When it was Livia's turn, silence dropped like a curtain. No invitation came. Henry leaned back in his chair and whispered just loud enough, "Careful, she probably doesn't even own a computer. You'll end up doing all the work yourself." The giggles returned, sharp and bright. The teacher, distracted with papers, either didn't hear or chose not to. Livia rose quietly, notebook in hand, and moved to an empty corner desk. She opened her book, drew neat lines across the page, and started alone. Her composure was infuriating to Camilla. The lack of visible pain denied her the satisfaction she craved. At lunch, they escalated. Camilla strolled toward Livia's table with a carton of juice in her hand. "Here," she said sweetly, offering it out. When Livia reached for it, Camilla tilted her wrist and spilled the drink down the front of Livia's shirt. "Oh no, I'm so clumsy." She smiled, her friends howling behind her. "Well, it kind of matches, right? Old shirt, new stain." Henry filmed it, delighted. "This is going online." "A classic!" He raised the phone like a trophy. The circle of laughter was merciless, closing tighter around the girl at its center. Livia froze for a moment, the cold juice soaking through fabric, her hands trembling slightly. Every instinct begged her to run, to scream, to cry. But she pressed her lips together and steadied her breath. She would not perform for them. She pulled napkins from her bag, dabbed at the stain, and returned to her meal as though nothing had happened. That silence unsettled them more than any outburst could have. Camilla's smirk faltered. Henry lowered the phone without realizing. Their cruelty thrived on spectacle, but Livia gave them none. From her seat at another table, Marina's heart twisted. Shame burned her cheeks, not for Livia, but for herself. Each time she stayed quiet, she knew she was choosing safety over decency. And that choice was starting to eat at her. The day dragged on, heavy with whispers and side glances. By the final bell, Camilla had already hatched her next move. The upcoming school party was the perfect stage. If humiliation in the cafeteria wasn't enough, then a grander audience would seal Livia's fate. As Livia zipped her worn backpack and stepped into the fading light of afternoon, she carried more than books. She carried the growing storm of others' cruelty and the steady, hidden current of her own secret, biding its time. By Friday afternoon, the school looked like a showroom. Glitter banners hung over the gym doors. The DJ tested bass in chest-thudding bursts, and clusters of students compared outfits like trophies. Camilla moved through it all as if the night were written for her. Hair glossy, dress new, smile bright enough to blind. Henry trailed behind, filming everything he could turn into a reel later. Livia arrived the way she always did, unnoticed at first, carrying the same worn backpack, a simple sweater over a plain dress that could pass for a uniform. She signed her name at the check-in table and slipped to the edge of the gym, where the lights dimmed into shadow. Marina saw her and half rose, then hesitated. The risk of choosing sides in public still pinned her to her chair. The music swelled. Photos flashed. Camilla made sure to orbit within sight of Livia, letting each laugh land like a dart. "You made it," Camilla said finally, voice sweet, eyes hard. "There's a coat check unless that backpack is the look." A few snickers answered. Henry's phone angled for the shot. Livia met the words with a calm that made Camilla blink. "I'm fine here," she said, and stepped back into the margin, where the light softened and the noise blurred. She didn't watch the dance floor. She watched the clock. When the gym doors opened to the courtyard for fresh air, the party spilled outside into evening. The sky was the deep blue that comes right before night. Street lamps humming to life along the curb. A pair of seniors revved a borrowed sports car, drawing a small crowd. Camilla threw a look over her shoulder to make sure Livia saw the spectacle. Henry lifted the phone again, panning from Chrome to the girl he expected to flinch. She didn't. Her gaze slid past the noise, past the showing off toward the street beyond the gates. Then the sound came, a quieter authority. The low, silk-smooth purr of a well-tuned Viot. Black sedan turned the corner and glided along the curb. It didn't need to be loud. It was the kind of car that assumed people would move for it. And they did, instinctively parting to make room. Conversations stuttered. Heads turned. The sedan stopped directly in front of the school steps and idled, its paint catching the last of the light in a mirror-dark sheen. The rear door remained closed. The driver stepped out first. Suit, polished shoes, posture that made him look taller than he was. He scanned the small crowd, then walked with measured calm toward the courtyard gate. Camilla straightened, a smile darting to her lips as if recognition might claim her. Henry lifted the phone higher, hungry. "Excuse me," the driver said, voice steady. He stopped at the edge of the group, eyes landing past Camilla, past Henry, on the girl standing in the soft shadow near the wall. He inclined his head. "Miss Livia, we're ready for you." Silence. The kind that drops like a curtain and leaves only the sound of a car breathing. Someone's laugh died mid-breath. A plastic cup slipped from a hand and rolled, tapping against the concrete like a second hand on a clock. Marina's heart jumped into her throat. She looked at Livia, really looked, and saw none of the surprise the others expected. There was only a small exhale, as if a weight had been set down exactly where it belonged. Livia stepped forward. She didn't rush. She didn't apologize. The crowd bent around her like grass around a riverstone. As she passed Camilla, their eyes met. Camilla's wide with calculation. Livia's level unreadable. Henry's phone shook in his grip. The frame caught the driver holding the gate, the open street. The car waiting like an answer to a question no one had had the courage to ask. "Probably an Uber," someone muttered too loudly, panic wrapped in sarcasm. The driver opened the rear door with a practiced motion and stood aside. "After you, miss." Livia placed her backpack on her shoulder more securely, then paused and turned just enough to find Marina over the crowd. For a second, their glances held an apology, a promise, a line thrown across a dark sea. Then Livia slipped into the car. The door closed with a sound that felt expensive, a soft, final click. Camilla lurched a step forward. "Wait," she started, but the driver was already in his seat. The sedan eased from the curb, signal blinking once like a wink, and merged into the evening. No screech, no showy acceleration, only that quiet authority, disappearing around the corner. The silence in its wake wasn't empty. It was crowded with new math, the respectful address, the way the driver knew her, the kind of car that didn't idle for just anyone. A dozen theories hatched at once. Her mom must clean for someone rich. No, she's a nanny. Maybe she won a contest. The need to explain, to reduce, rattled like beads in a jar. Marina didn't speak. She kept her eyes on the street long after the taillights were gone, as if the air itself still held the shape of what had happened. When she finally looked back at the courtyard, Camilla was already curating the next version of events. Words lined up like soldiers. "It's nothing." "It's fake." "It doesn't count." But the image had branded itself into the night, the door opening, the formal miss, the girl no one saw being treated like someone everyone should have seen. The story had shifted, whether they admitted it or not. Inside the gym, the music tried to pretend nothing had changed. Outside, the party thinned, groups clustering to whisper. Marina wrapped her arms around herself against a breeze that wasn't really cold. Somewhere, deep under the thump of bass and the buzz of speculation, something else was moving now, a tide turning. By Monday morning, the hallways would be a different country. The entire school buzzed with one question. Who exactly was Livia? The luxury car hadn't just picked her up. It had planted itself in everyone's, Memory like a scene replaying on loop. The driver's formality, the polished calm of the car, the way Livia walked into it without hesitation. It didn't fit the picture they had drawn of her. The poor girl with the broken zipper and faded clothes. Now the whispers were louder than ever. She must be some rich family's maid, one girl muttered at her locker. No, she's adopted by someone powerful. That's why she hides it. Maybe she's a nanny. Drivers always act polite. Excuses poured out like leaks in a sinking ship. Nobody wanted to admit what was clear. They had mocked someone whose life stretched far beyond their shallow imaginations. Camilla, the self-proclaimed queen of the hallways, fought hardest to rewrite the narrative. She laughed loudly in front of her friends, tossing her perfect hair. Seriously? You all think she's rich? Please. That car belonged to her employer. Trust me, if she had money, she wouldn't walk around dressed like a charity case. Henry nodded quickly, desperate to cling to her version. Exactly. You think someone that rich would sit with us in class and act invisible? No way. She's hiding because she has nothing. But their voices carried a brittle edge. Even they couldn't erase the image of the driver bowing slightly, saying Miss Livia with the kind of respect no employer gives to staff. Meanwhile, Livia entered school as though nothing had changed. Same faded jeans, same modest sweater, same calm expression. She gave them no answers, no satisfaction. Her silence unsettled them more than any confession could. Marina watched closely. Every detail of Friday replayed in her mind. The steady way Livia walked to the car, the absence of surprise in her face, the hint of relief when the door closed behind her. None of it felt borrowed. It felt like truth carefully concealed. At lunch, Camilla tried again to force control. She swept across the cafeteria and stopped at Marina's table. You sit near her, don't you? What's the deal? Her voice carried the weight of command. Marina stiffened. I don't know. It was true, but not the whole truth. Because deep down she sensed Livia's secret was bigger than gossip. Camilla narrowed her eyes. Don't get clever. If she really belongs to money, why would she sit alone? Why wouldn't she flaunt it? Marina surprised herself with the courage in her reply. Maybe because she doesn't need to. The words dropped like stones into water. Camilla blinked, caught off guard, before recovering with a cold smile. We'll see. She turned away, but the control she once held so easily was slipping. From her corner table, Livia observed quietly. She noticed Marina's defense, brief but brave, and tucked it away like a precious note. Not all silences were weakness. Some were seeds waiting to grow. And as the lunchroom's noise swelled again, one truth became undeniable. Whatever secret Livia carried, it was strong enough to turn their world upside down. And the closer it came to light, the more fragile their cruelty began to look. By midweek, the tension around Livia had shifted. The same students who once mocked her now watched her with restless curiosity. Every step she took through the halls felt like a test they couldn't pass. Was she really rich? Was she pretending? For the first time, the silence wasn't hers, it was theirs. Camilla, desperate to reclaim control, changed tactics. She approached Livia at her locker with a syrupy smile. Hey, you should sit with us at lunch today. We were thinking it would be nice to get to know you better. The fakery dripped from every word. Henry stood behind her, nodding, phone in hand, ready to record proof of their sudden friendship. The crowd that lingered nearby held their breath, waiting to see how Livia would respond. She closed her locker gently and turned, her face calm as stone. Her lips curved in a faint smile, not warm, not cold, but sharp enough to unsettle. Not everything is what it looks like, she said softly. Then she walked past them, leaving Camilla frozen, smile cracking. Henry lowered his phone, pretending to check a notification, but the unease on his face gave him away. For the rest of the day, speculation raged louder. What did she mean by that? So she is hiding something. She's probably embarrassed about being connected to money. Everyone filled the silence with theories, but no one had answers. Only Marina dared to search for the truth. That afternoon, as the final bell echoed, she gathered her courage and found Livia sitting alone beneath a tree on the edge of campus, notebook balanced on her lap. Marina hesitated, heart thudding, then sat beside her. I just wanted to say, Marina began, I admire the way you handle them. I couldn't do it. Livia lifted her eyes from the page. For the first time, Marina saw something beyond composure, a flicker of exhaustion. of weariness from battles fought too long, but it vanished quickly, replaced by the same serene mask. "Don't admire me," Livia said quietly. "I'm just tired of giving them power." Marina bit her lip. She wanted to ask, wanted to demand an answer, but she wasn't Camilla. She couldn't treat people like puzzles to be solved for gossip. So she simply asked softly, "And the car?" A shadow of a smile touched Livia's face. "When it's time, they'll understand." It wasn't an answer, not fully, but it was more than anyone else had received. And it was enough for Marina to know one thing. Livia wasn't hiding out of shame. She was waiting. Meanwhile, Camilla stewed in frustration. Her grip on the school's social crown slipped with each unanswered question. Her plan now was clear: expose Livia, no matter the cost. And so, with the next school event drawing near, Camilla sharpened her strategy like a blade. Because if truth wouldn't come willingly, she would drag it into the light. The night of the parent-teacher meeting should have been uneventful. Rows of chairs lined the auditorium, the smell of polished wood mingling with faint perfume and cologne. Parents chatted politely, students hovered awkwardly at the back, and teachers shuffled papers while waiting to begin. But the entire student body carried a single obsession. Who would arrive for Livia? Camilla sat near the front with her mother, whispering venom behind a practiced smile. "Watch," she told anyone who'd listen. "Her parents won't even show. If they do, it'll be in the same old clothes she wears. You'll see." Henry snickered beside her, though his laugh was thinner than usual. Marina, seated quietly, felt her stomach churn. A part of her wanted the truth as much as everyone else. But not for gossip, for justice. She wanted Livia's silence to finally mean something undeniable. The clock ticked. Then headlights swept across the windows. It wasn't one car. It was three. Sleek black vehicles rolled up in sequence, polished metal gleaming under the street lamps. The doors opened with quiet precision. Men in tailored suits stepped out first, scanning the surroundings like shadows with purpose. And then came a woman, elegant, poised, with her hair pulled neatly back, her jewelry subtle but commanding. Beside her, a man in a navy suit adjusted his cufflinks, walking with the easy assurance of someone used to boardrooms and cameras. The whispers began immediately. "I've seen him before. Isn't that the hotel magnate?" "No way, that's her father?" Gasps rippled through the room. When the couple turned and gestured toward the third car, Livia stepped out calmly, still in her modest clothes, her worn backpack slung over one shoulder. Yet here, framed by the sharp silhouettes of luxury and wealth, she looked untouchable. The director of the school hurried forward, shaking hands with her parents like an old friend. Cameras clicked as some parents tried to take discreet photos. The teachers straightened, suddenly alert. Camilla's mouth fell open. The story she had spun about maids and employers crumbled in an instant. Henry blinked rapidly, his phone forgotten in his hand. When introductions began, the headmistress announced it clearly for everyone to hear. "We are honored to welcome Mr. and Mrs. Duarte, longtime patrons of our institution, and, of course, their daughter, our student Livia." The word hung in the air. Daughter. Not maid. Not nanny. Daughter. Livia's mother gave a polite nod to the room before turning to her daughter. "Shall we?" she asked warmly. The family walked together to the reserved seats in the front row. Camilla scrambled to recover. She pushed past Marina, nearly tripping, and forced a smile at Livia's mother. I'm Camilla. Livia and I are such good friends." Mrs. Duarte's gaze swept over her, cool, unreadable. Then, in a voice as sharp as crystal, she replied, "Real friends don't need to announce themselves. The dismissal was surgical." Camilla froze, cheeks burning as laughter rippled quietly behind her. Meanwhile, Marina sat in stunned silence. She had suspected Livia's secret was big, but not this big. Not the daughter of one of the city's most powerful families. Yet even now, Livia sat with the same calm expression, as if wealth had never been the point. The room had changed. Every assumption, every cruel word, every laugh at her expense lay broken on the floor. And for the first time, Livia was exactly what they had refused to see. Undeniable. By the next morning, the air in the classroom felt different. Every eye was drawn to Livia the moment she walked in. The girl they once dismissed as invisible now carried a presence that silenced whispers before they could form. No designer bag hung from her shoulder. No sparkling jewelry adorned. her wrists. Only the same worn backpack and simple clothes, but it no longer mattered. Everyone knew. Camilla sat stiffly at her desk, her confidence cracked. She fiddled with her phone, as though typing furiously could erase the humiliation of the night before. Henry avoided looking at anyone, his usual smirk absent. The court jesters had lost their stage. The teacher, sensing the tension, announced that today's discussion would be about respect. She asked for volunteers. Silence stretched until unexpectedly Livia stood. Her steps were steady, each one echoing louder than the laughter that used to follow her. She set her notebook on the teacher's desk and turned to face the class. "You all taught me something," she began, her voice calm but carrying weight. "You taught me how easy it is to laugh at someone when you think they have nothing. How simple it is to measure worth in shoes, bags, phones, things that disappear the moment fashion changes. No one dared to move." Camilla tried to sneer, but the muscles in her face betrayed her. Livia's gaze swept the room. "You mocked me because I didn't fight back. You thought silence meant weakness. But silence is patience, and patience is strength." A ripple of discomfort passed through the rows of desks. Henry shifted in his seat, the words hitting deeper than he wanted to admit. "Now you've seen the truth," Livia continued. "Yes, my family has wealth. But that was never your mistake. Your mistake was thinking you could measure me by what I wore, by what I carried, by what you assumed. You measured me by what I lacked. And in doing so, you revealed everything you lack yourselves." Her words fell like stones in water, rippling through every corner of the room. Some students looked down, ashamed. Others shifted nervously. Even Marina, though proud, felt the sting of her own silence in those earlier moments, when she hadn't stepped forward. Finally, Livia turned to her. The look in her eyes softened for the first time. "But not everyone failed that test," she said gently. "Some people chose kindness even when it cost them." The recognition made Marina's chest ache, her throat tighten. Livia closed her notebook, her expression serene. "I don't need your apologies. I don't need your approval. All I need is for you to remember, the person you laugh at today may be the one whose respect you'll beg for tomorrow." She stepped back to her desk, her presence filling the silence she left behind. Camilla sat frozen, her face pale, her kingdom reduced to ruins. Henry looked away, ashamed to meet Livia's gaze. And for once, the entire class sat in reverent quiet, the weight of her words pressing down like gravity. Livia hadn't shouted. She hadn't demanded. She had simply spoken, and in doing so, delivered the sharpest revenge of all, the truth they could never escape. The days that followed were unlike any the school had ever known. The rhythm of laughter and gossip had broken, replaced by an uneasy quiet. For once, cruelty didn't feel safe. Every whisper about Livia died quickly, swallowed by the memory of her words and the sight of her parents, walking through those school doors with quiet authority. Camilla's reign collapsed faster than anyone expected. Her friends, once eager to orbit her like satellites, drifted away. Nobody wanted to be seen propping up a fallen queen. In class, she sat rigid, eyes hollow, as if she couldn't quite believe her kingdom had been reduced to dust. Every attempt to mock someone else fell flat. The audience was gone. Henry, stripped of his smirk, carried the weight of his own shame. He had recorded humiliation like it was sport, but now even his phone seemed heavy in his hands. His jokes no longer drew laughter. They only reminded people of the cruelty they had enabled. For the first time, he seemed small, not because others mocked him, but because he saw himself clearly in the reflection Livia had forced on them all. Marina, on the other hand, flourished. She found herself walking beside Livia more often, their conversation soft but steady. For Marina, the revelation wasn't about wealth. It was about dignity. Livia had chosen to acknowledge her kindness, and that recognition gave her a strength she didn't know she carried. She began to speak up more, not only for Livia, but for others who once suffered in silence. And Livia? She remained unchanged on the surface. Still the same faded backpack. Still the same simple clothes. Still the same quiet grace. But now, the silence surrounding her wasn't one of dismissal. It was respect, tinged with the sting of regret from those who had once laughed too loud. The final blow came during a school assembly. The principal announced a scholarship fund. donated by the Duarte family to support students from struggling backgrounds. As the applause rose, Camilla's face blanched. The girl she had called poor was now the reason future students would have opportunities that no amount of cruelty could steal. When the assembly ended, Camilla lingered, clutching her books like shields. She wanted to say something, to apologize, to beg, to explain. But when Livia walked past, surrounded by classmates who no longer dared to laugh, she didn't even glance in Camilla's direction. That silence was the sharpest answer of all. As the year drew on, the story of the poor girl became legend. They no longer called her invisible. They no longer mocked her clothes, because the truth had branded itself too deep to forget. Wealth could buy cars, houses, schools, but dignity was something else entirely, and Livia had never needed to buy it. She had carried it all along. Life has a way of exposing the truth. Those who mock may feel powerful for a moment, but the day always comes when the world reminds them. Appearances deceive, but dignity does not.